Hello, everyone. I am Sophia Melonē, the Debt Demolisher. Excited to be before you all for yet our next live stream as we continue our conversations around student loans and so much more. I want you guys to ensure that you share this live stream out and invite other folks inside of the room, as I'm here to address any questions that you might have as it relates to either public service loan forgiveness, the limited waiver, or as well as the one-time student debt relief that was recently announced by President Joe Biden. I have been collecting questions that have been coming to my Instagram. So if you have any questions, or if you send me a question on Instagram, I will be going over those today. And also, if you would like to send me questions on Instagram, you could do so as well by checking me out and following me at Debt Demolisher TV on Instagram. There's links that will take you directly to my IG page as well as to my YouTube channel. So as you guys are here, feel free to share it out. I'm going to go ahead and start the conversation with the first question that came into my IG. As you enter the room, please feel free to put in your questions so that I can address them during this live, so that way we can be efficient and maximize the time that we have together tonight. Starting with the first question that I received, this one came from a person who is eligible for public service loan forgiveness. They have worked with a particular organization that's in the health field, so Kaiser Permanente, for 10 years after graduation, and they work above the time requirement, which is 30 hours per week. And they want to know whether or not if they will be eligible for public service loan forgiveness if they work for this particular employer. So when you're looking at the public service loan forgiveness, and just to briefly explain and give you guys a high level of what the public service loan forgiveness is, public service loan forgiveness is one of the forgiveness programs that are available for those who have direct federal student loans. And when you have direct federal student loans and you want to apply for public service loan forgiveness, you have to work for a qualified employer. And that qualified employer can be a government entity, whether it be federal, state, and local, or even tribal organizations, or it could be a nonprofit organization that is a 501c3, or if it is a nonprofit organization that provides a qualifying service if they may not have the 501c3 status. So one easy way for you to identify whether or not if your employer is a qualified employer, you can do two things. Number one, you can check with the employer search function that is available on the Department of Education's website. So if you go to studentaid.gov/PSLF/employer-search, it will take you to their front-facing tool that they have available for you to be able to enter your employer's EIN number in the system to confirm preliminarily if your employer is eligible. Now, when you utilize this tool, there could be an instance where your employer very well might be an eligible employer, but if no one from your job has applied for public service loan forgiveness, then they essentially will not be in the database, so to speak, yet. So if your employer comes back and says that it's ineligible based on the search tool that you use, it could just mean that nobody from your entity has submitted an application, and therefore the Department of Education has not gone through the investigation process to determine that particular employer to be eligible. But that does not mean that it's not. So what they're encouraging you to do, even if you utilize the search tool, you have to base it on the instructions. You have to base it on the type of employer that you have, not what you do, but what what the status of your employer is and what your employer provides in terms of a service. If it is a nonprofit organization that is not a 501c3. Another alternative that you can do to check is by utilizing the IRS's charitable organization search. Now, one thing that we have to realize is that when it comes to any type of public form of organizations or entities, we must know that it's more than likely accessible on the internet. So if you don't know your employer's EIN, you could essentially do a quick Google search, put in an employer name, put an EIN, and see what populates. If you already have your W-2s, then your W-2s is going to already include the employer's EIN, so you'll be able to search it that way. But for some of you who may be former employers of a qualified employer, meaning a public service type of employer, but you may not have access to the EIN, or you may not be able to quickly retrieve the EIN, you could utilize the charitable organization search function that's available on IRS's website. So let me go ahead and show you all what that looks like, because I think sometimes it's just easier to show you than just kind of speak to it. So let me pull it up. Makes it so much easier if I just pull it up for you guys. All right, so let me just walk you through it. Okay, you guys, I'm going to try this real quick, and put your questions in the chat while you can, and feel free to share this out as we go over this demo. Okay, so if you just type in the search function, IRS searchable database of tax exempt organizations, you'll see this drop down box, or this first option that will take you to the tax exempt organization search. If you click on this search function, it will take you to the tool. As you can see here, the website is irs.gov/charities-nonprofit-non-profits-. It's a lot of dashes, so it's just easier for you guys to just put it in Google for it to come up. And then when you do that, you're going to click on the tax exempt organization search tool. When you do that, it will allow you to determine if that organization is a tax exempt org. So once you click on that box, you could select the database. If you want to do all searches, it's just better to just do all searches. If you have your employer's identification number, you can use that as the option to search by, and then you would just put in the employer's EIN number in this field. Or you can search about organization's name, and then you'll just type in the organization's name that you work for and click the search function. When you do that, it will return the results. So let me know if that makes sense for you all and if that helps. And then I could even do the example to put in. Let me just do that. Let me do that. Let me flip it back so that way you can see. So this person worked for Kaiser, right? So let's type in Kaiser. I'm doing it by organization name. And then we can hit the search function. When you click the search function, there are 115 results of organizations that are tax exempt that contain the organization's name or contain the name Kaiser in it. So what you want to do, if you want to drill down a little bit further, we're going to say Kaiser Permanente. Search that back. Drilled it down, so that gave us 6 results now. 6 results. And so you would have to look and see if your organization, meaning the company who you work for, the EIN, if it matches, and if the company name is what is on your W-2s or on your pay stub, then you know that this will be one of the tax exempt organizations. So if you're even looking for your employer's EIN and you know that they are a qualified employer, meaning it's a nonprofit organization, not any of the government entities, but nonprofits, if you want to be able to retrieve and find the EIN, you could utilize this search tool in order to get it. All right. Let me know if that was helpful. Okie doke. Thank you all for your questions. Let's go into these questions because I know the questions will start flying like popcorn. Okay. How long do you have to be with the company? So when it comes to public service loan forgiveness, it has to be a nonprofit organization or a government entity, and you would have to be with them for at least 10 years. So you have to do at least 10 years of service for public service loan forgiveness only. You have to be with them for at least 10 years, and you have to have made at least 120 qualified payments while you were with that qualified employer. So when it comes to the public service loan forgiveness, it's 10 years. That happened to me. Okay, I'm not sure what happened. What if you've been with the eligible employer but haven't made any payments due to forbearance? So if you've been with the eligible employer but you have not made any payments due to forbearance, those periods will still count as long as you get your forms in. So we have to remember that due to the pandemic, the repayment pause went into effect in March 13, I believe, on March 13th, 2020. And so any of those payments that were in forbearance due to the repayment pause, those periods will automatically count. If there were any other forbearance types, this is just for public service loan forgiveness, they will be included as counts because they are counting any forbearance that was 12 months consecutively, or they're counting any forbearance that is 36 months or more cumulative. So those would be the instances whereby those periods can count as long as you get your forms in during this limited waiver period. I found that we had 2 EIN numbers. One showed we were a nonprofit and the other showed we were not. So great question. This is a great point to the person who may be working with an employer that has 2 types of, basically their organizations could be for-profit and nonprofit. So you would have to note which side of the company that you work for. And again, that will really be based on, your W-2s or whatever the case may be. So there are instances where EINs can basically be assigned to more than one employer. So it could be more than one employer type. So just depends. Been with the employer for a year. Okay, so you've been with the employer for 1 year, then all of your payments that's been in forbearance during the repayment pause, you'll essentially get that 12 months or the 12 periods, because it counts based on the time that you were with your qualified employer. What if I was only with the employer for 2 years but have done 120 payments? So again, you have to be making your payments while you are working with a qualified employer. So if you've done 120 payments, then that means you've already done 10 years of you've worked somewhere for 10 years, or you've been paying on your loans for 10 years. But out of that 10 years, only 2 of those years you were working with a qualified employer. If that's the case for you, then you still have some more time to go until you reach your 120, because the forgiveness is not going to occur until you've reached 120 qualified payments while working with a qualified employer for 10 years. So that's something that you want to make sure that you note and understand. Okay, but I've done 120 payments working part-time only. So the question that you have, I want to make sure that I'm understanding this clearly. If you were only with your employer for 2 years and you were working with that employer part-time, you're going to have to ensure that the time that you've worked with that qualified employer, you were working 30 hours a week or more. So if you were working less than 30 hours a week and that was the only employer that you've worked for, then unfortunately those periods will not count for you, because for public service loan forgiveness purposes only, you have to be working at least 30 hours a week with that qualified employer in order for your payment period to count as a qualified payment. So if you are a part-time employee one of the things that you want to check to ensure is how many hours per week that you've worked for that particular employer, because what the Department of Education considers as full-time is 30 hours a week. We have until October to consolidate to be eligible for programs. How do we know if it is best for us? This is an exceptional question. And I want to be very clear when it comes to public service loan forgiveness and any consolidation that you may have to do. You do want to understand that not all of your loans have to be consolidated. So when you're looking at what your history is for your loan type, the only reason you would have to consolidate is if you do not have direct loans. So these would mainly be for those who have Perkins loans or for those who have federal family education loans. So if you have FFEL loans or Perkins loans, it will work to your advantage to consolidate, because you know any of those periods that or any of those prior payments that you've made on those loan types will roll over after the consolidation. So if you are wondering whether or not if you should consolidate, your best option to do this analysis is to leverage the Department of Education's loan simulator. So the Department of Education has a loan simulator that is available on their website, where you can actually use even your own loan data to do the projection to see whether or not if it's even going to be feasible for you to do that. I know some folks were going into a frenzy about, oh, I need to consolidate. In some cases, you may not even need to consolidate. As long as your loans are direct, you don't have to consolidate at all. Even if it's unsubsidized, subsidized, whatever the case, as long as it is direct, then you don't have to consolidate. The only time that you would have to consolidate is if your loans are not a direct loan. It's not one of the loans that are part of the direct loan program. And even still, as I was just explaining, if you have been paying on your loans for quite some time and you're thinking about consolidating, you have to remember that the only payment periods that will roll over after consolidation are Perkins loans and FFEL loans only. So if you consolidate any other loan type, whether it be Parent Plus loan or any of the other types, you have to bear in mind that your prior payments that you've made on those loans will not roll over. So the only way that it will really benefit you is if you have a Perkins loan and maybe a Parent Plus loan or Perkins loan or FFEL loan or in another type of loan that's not a direct loan that you then roll over or that you then consolidate. Because once you consolidate your FFEL loans, the Perkins loans, the whatever payments that you made on those will roll over as your oldest count. And so let's say, for example, if you have been paying on your Perkins loans for 9 years and then you decide to consolidate your Perkins loans into a direct loan, those 9 years of payments, as long as you were working with a qualified employer, let me make sure that I preface that, as long as you're working with a qualified employer, those periods will be able to count for you and you won't lose them. So utilize the loan simulator as the test for you. I would say pull in your own loan data so that way you can see what it's going to be for you. It allows you to select your loan type, the interest rate, all of that stuff. It allows you to really run through the entire example to see what your new expected payment will be, as well as how many periods it'll take you. I think it gives you how many periods it'll take you to pay it off. So definitely leverage the loan simulator to help make your assessment prior to consolidation. What if you no longer work there? If you no longer work there, for you, you want to look at how long you were actually with that employer. So if you no longer work with an employer, but you were there for 10 years, or you know that you had possibly done that 120 while you were with that employer, then the limited time waiver is something that you really want to be able to take advantage of, because during this time under the waiver, you no longer have to still work for the qualified employer in order to receive the forgiveness. So the stipulation is, originally, you would have to still be working with the qualified employer. You would have to have made qualified payments while working with the qualified employer, and you would have to do service for 10 years in order to receive the forgiveness. But under this limited waiver, they are allowing folks who may no longer still work for a qualified employer to receive that forgiveness as long as they've met the 120. So the challenge then becomes, or the question then becomes for you is, how long were you with your former qualified employer, and whether or not, if you know that you've done 120 payments while you were with that former employer. And I would definitely take advantage of getting my public service loan forgiveness form in during this limited time waiver period, which is set to expire October 31st, 2022. Thank you guys for all of the shares. Make sure that you continue to share this out and invite other folks inside of the room so that way they can get this information as well. They want you to consolidate your loans. I have a higher interest rate. Is it worth it? Again, you would want to utilize the loan simulator to see. You want to look at your situation when it comes to what types of loans that you have. And this is only for public service loan forgiveness purposes. So you don't have to consolidate if you already have a direct loan. So I don't want you to think, because I think I just got a question about someone saying that they were asked to consolidate when they asked about the one-time debt relief. The one-time debt relief, which is the $20K or the $10K, you do not have to do any consolidation for that. So the only consolidation that would essentially be necessary is for public service loan forgiveness only, for those who do not have direct loans. That is the only instance where public service loan, where consolidation would be necessary, and that's only if you qualify for public service loan. Is this Parent Plus loan included? We took out loans for my daughter. So when you're asking your questions, let me know which one you're referring to, because I think some people are coming into the conversation and they may be referring to the one-time debt relief versus the public service loan forgiveness. So again, for public service loan forgiveness, it is based on who you work for, not necessarily what you do. So if your employer is a public service organization, then you could qualify for the public service loan forgiveness, which is completely separate from the one-time debt relief. So when it comes to your Parent Plus loans, the only way that it will be an advantage to you is if you have federal loans of your own that maybe you were paying on prior to. And if you want to be able to get your Parent Plus loans to fall in the public service loan forgiveness scope, you would have to consolidate that into a direct loan in order to get it a part of the pool. But again, don't just blatantly jump and consolidate. You want to do your due diligence to see if it's actually going to make sense, because some people only have Parent Plus loans, and when you consolidate your Parent Plus loan into a direct loan, none of those prior periods will roll over. So you will essentially be starting from zero with your qualified payments if you work for a qualified employer. But for one-time debt relief purposes, it does not matter who you work for, what your repayment status is. It's just based on how much you make. Why is the borrower's defense so difficult? I know that's a challenging question. They have an entire group that they use to essentially come up with the defense. So you have to think about it. When it comes to borrower's defense, they're literally putting a lawsuit together. That's what they're doing. So the borrower's defense group is collecting evidence from you as a student, from you as the borrower, for them to present their case as to why or if a school was deemed to be involving themselves in some malpractices or have been deceiving students to get them to enroll and take out these larger loans, so that way they can get the resources from you taking out the loans to go to that institution. So granted, it can be difficult because you have to be able to help them state their case. So if you're submitting a borrower's defense application like brand spanking new, that's not one of the schools that's listed on their website, then of course you're going to have to help provide that evidence so that they can present their case to prove that. So yeah, it can be difficult. And I know some people are asking questions around, oh, well, what will suffice? They tell you on the website that you literally have to provide support as to why you believe that that particular school or institution involved themselves in whatever the criteria is for borrower's defense. So the borrower's defense group is the one who basically collects your information and does the determination and so forth and presents the case. When you are consolidating for the loan forgiveness, they want 2 references. Are you asking why do they want it? That question I can't answer. What document do we need to submit for public service loan forgiveness? I came on the tail end of the statement. So there is a public service loan forgiveness form that is available on studentaid.gov/PSLF. This form is something that you can fill out once either you believe that you've met the 120, or if you just want to be able to see how close you are to eligibility for the 120. But that form is available there. I also have a pinned post on my page that shows you where to find the form and how to fill out the form. But you can access it by going to studentaid.gov/public PSLF, or you could simply log into your FSA ID account, click under the Manage My Account features, and then you can select Public Service Loan Forgiveness. It'll take you right to the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Help Tool, and the Help Tool will actually help you populate the form, which would actually be easier for you. Thank you all so much for the roses, the follows, and the shares. Feel free to continue to share this out as you join into the room and as you populate your questions. Unable to locate previous jobs EIN and they close, nonprofit, where do I go? So you could potentially look under, and I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but I pulled up the tax exempt organization search function that's available on irs.gov. And that feature will allow you to search the charities. But I want to see if there is one where they could show you all of the determinations. Let's see, revocations for the determinations. So it says it does not include organizations whose tax exempt status has been automatically revoked for failing to file an annual 990 for 3 consecutive years. For more information on these organizations, also see this. So it may come up in the search function. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't tried to look for a nonprofit organization that has closed. But I will say this, for public service loan forgiveness purposes, there is a checkbox inside of the form under the employer certification section where it asks you if this employer is closed. So if the employer is closed, then you can check that box. And you could also, if you still have copies of your W-2s during the period in which you work for that qualified employer, and you were making qualified payments during that period, you could essentially attach your W-2s for those years as proof of employment, but I would also check that box to indicate that they are closed. And this is for public service loan forgivenesses. Okay. Because of your last live, I consolidated direct loans with Mohila and just waiting for my public service loan forgiveness. Thank you, sis. You are so welcome. One of the things that I love to hear is testimonials like this, where people are receiving the information, they're researching it for themselves, they're doing the work, and they're taking action. So I want to celebrate you for doing that and for taking that action. And I'm praying that all of your updates and your accounts will be taken care of, and you will be one step closer to student loan debt relief and forgiveness. In your exact situation, I consolidated loans and now on a income contingent plan. And here's another thing as well. So depending on the plan that you're on, because we know that sometimes these income contingent repayment plans, and typically if you're on an income contingent, that's the only qualifiable plan for public service loan for Parent Plus loans. So for those who may have to consolidate their Parent Plus loan into a direct loan, then they would have to choose the ICR as their repayment plan. And we know that it can be very expensive, and sometimes it may even feel unaffordable. But once the third part of the debt relief plan, which relates to 5%, which relates to your IDR being no more than 5% of your discretionary income, once that comes into play, then more than likely your monthly requirement will end up adjusting. Now, again, this hasn't been finalized. It's not set in stone yet, but that's something to take into consideration. However, we don't know how long it's going to take for that to take effect. So before you consolidate, definitely look at the affordability of you adjusting and what that new payment is going to be, because once the repayment pause lifts, you do have to understand that your required payment is what you're going to have to pay. And you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you go into default, because for public service loan forgiveness purposes, defaulted loans are not eligible for the forgiveness. So whatever you decide, you have to ensure that you're going to be able to uphold your end of the bargain for payment purposes, so that your loan does not go into default for public service loan forgiveness purposes, not the debt relief, public service loan forgiveness. The forgiveness is not for private student loans, right? That is correct. Anything that I'm discussing is not related to private loans. I'm a notary public. So if I just became a notary, how does this apply? So if you are a notary, then you have to realize that more than likely you're independent. And so it's not based on what you do, it's based on who you work for. So for public service loan forgiveness purposes, it's based on who you work for. So who issues your W-2. For the one-time debt relief purpose, it doesn't matter who you work for, what loan type you have. Those loans could even be in default. It just depends on what you make in terms of you meeting the income criteria. So being a public notary is more so what you do as opposed to who you work for. So if you are independent and you have your own business as a notary and you're not working for a nonprofit organization as a notary, then for public service loan forgiveness purposes, you technically would not qualify. If I am single but claim head of household and make less than $250 for head of household, do I qualify? So this question is pertaining to the one-time debt relief, which is either the $20K or the $10K. And so if you are head of household, that means you have a dependent that you claim, which would technically make your household more than one. And so if your household is more than one and head of household is your tax filing status, yes, if you make less than $250,000 and you have federal student loans, you would qualify for the one-time debt relief of either up to $10,000 or $20,000, depending on your Pell Grant recipient status. If you are a Pell Grant recipient, then you would get up to $20,000 in debt relief. And if you were not a Pell Grant recipient, you would get up to $10,000 in debt relief. What if you were laid off for a year? I'm not sure what this question is pertaining to. I answered that. What is the site for the loan forgiveness? So the site for the public service loan forgiveness is studentaid.gov/P as in public, S as in service, L as in loan, F as in forgiveness. And for the one-time debt relief, that application is not available yet. However, there are tons of information that is being updated on the site to keep borrowers and everyone informed. And that is studentaid.gov/debt relief. That page will summarize the Biden announcement that was made on August 24th. And it will also take you to a direct link of where to get the details on the one-time debt relief or debt cancellation, which is what they are calling it. I've consolidated already. I just need to know what to do next. So if you've consolidated already, the next thing that you have to do is submit your public service loan forgiveness forms. If you know that you work for a qualified public service organization. So if you've submitted your consolidation application, you do not have to wait for your consolidation to process. You can proceed with getting your public service loan forgiveness forms completed and signed by your employers. So that way you can submit it to MOHELA, which will now be your new loan service provider, because they handle all of the accounts for public service loan forgiveness applications that have been received. So once you do that, I will move forward with submitting my forms so that way MOHELA can receive them, and then they're going to hold your PSLF form until the consolidation actually happens. And then once that happens, they'll begin to update your counts. What is the website for the loan simulator? So you could go to one of two places. You could go to studentaid.gov/loan simulator, but let me put it in for sure. Or if you could just type in Google student aid loan simulator, and it'll come up. Because sometimes the URLs are really long because it has a lot of dashes and stuff inside of it. Yeah, I was right. So studentaid.gov/loan-simulator, and it'll take you right there. Matter of fact, I can show you all real quick because the questions be flying in here and I don't want to get too far behind. So you all can see that studentaid.gov/loan simulator. And it takes you through all of the different scenarios. You want to find the best student loan repayment strategy. It's going to ask you to log in, or you can start from scratch, or you can use the demo. If you're struggling to pay your student loans, log in. You want to consider a new repayment plan instead of suspending your payments. You want to find out about the impacts of suspended payments. You want to learn how to avoid default. If you want to stimulate borrowing more, then you can consider these options as well. So it gives you different scenarios. I mean, it's going to take you to the same place, but if you want to be able to use the simulator, you could do it that way. And again, it's best to use your actual data as opposed to using the information that's prompted in the demo, because you want it to be as close as possible to your particular situation, so that way you can make the best assessment for yourself. Okay, thank you all so much for the likes and shares. It's greatly appreciated. I work for a company that contracts with the government. Unfortunately, no. Again, it's based on who you work for, and it has to be the person who issues your W-2 has to be a qualifying employer. So if your company is a for-profit, then No. I've been in forbearance for more than 36 months consecutive. You're gonna have 36 months of qualified repayment period. So definitely get your forms in if you haven't done so already for public service loan forgiveness. With my qualified employer for 9.5 years and was in forbearance for the first 5. How many months credit is that? So you're gonna take the 5 and multiply it by 12, and that will give you at least 60. And so if that, and again, they're counting under this limited waiver, they are counting long-term forbearances for either 12 consecutive months or 36 months or more cumulative. So if you work for a qualified employer, then that'll give you that. So if you've been with your qualified employer for 9.5, well, yeah, you're still going to have some more periods to go. So you're going to be halfway, essentially, halfway through. Being a notary is, this is the only thing that I don't like about this is it drops to the bottom and then I lose where I was reading. Okay, so you asked that question, so I think I answered that. So do you have to have a qualifying employer? So you only have to have a qualifying employer if you are trying to get public service loan forgiveness. So if you're trying to get public service loan forgiveness, then you need to be working for a qualified public service organization. For the one-time debt relief, it does not matter who you work for, what your repayment status is, and so forth. So I really want you guys to just separate the conversation. So when you hear me say forgiveness, I'm talking about public service loan, which is a separate program and a separate benefit that is available for those who have direct student loans. Any other federal loan type would fall under the one-time debt relief. So when you hear me say debt relief or when you hear me say cancellation, more than likely I'm talking about the recent announcement by Biden for the 20K or the 10K. So I know sometimes people are commingling the terms and saying, oh, this is forgiveness and woo-woo-woo. But there's two things that are happening at the same time that do have time stipulations in place. And that is the limited waiver that is set to expire October 31st for public service loan forgiveness purposes, where the one-time debt relief, that application process is not going to be made available to the public until early October, and you have until December 31st, 2023 to submit your applications for the 20K or the 10K debt relief. I was working with DOE special need. I retired in September last year. I was told I have 109 credits, so that's good. So you are literally 11 credits away. And if you retired in September of last year, you should definitely get your I want to be careful of how I say this. But if you are retired, I would go ahead and put my public service loan forgiveness form in if you don't have any in for that period. From what they said, the payment repause periods are going to automatically count from what they said. So you may be at an advantage because we've been in this repayment pause since 2020. But if they said that you only have 109, and you're retired now, I would hate to hear that you are literally just 11 qualified payments away. I would hope that for you and your situation, that even though you're retired, those repayment pause periods will count. What if you never work for a qualified employer? So if you never work for a qualified employer, then public service loan forgiveness does not pertain to you. Then you will be referring to the one-time debt relief. You stated forbearance is included. Are income-driven repayments with zero payback also included? Absolutely. So if you're qualified, if your required payment is zero, then that counts as a qualified period because your payment due was zero. Do I qualify if any other forgiveness besides the public service loan? Well, it would depend on what. So there's a teacher forgiveness that's available. So I don't know if you're a teacher or not, but with the teacher forgiveness, that gives you up to $17,500 of student loan debt relief. But then you have to be doing a lot more years. I believe it's 25 years. So that's an option that's available in terms of forgiveness for federal purposes. So they have the teacher forgiveness. They have the public service loan forgiveness. They also have other options for cancellation. So they have Perkins cancellation. They have total and permanent disability discharge. They have so many different options. But when we're just talking about forgiveness, technically it's just two. And that's the teacher forgiveness and the public service loan forgiveness. I had Perkins loan. Can I have it forgiven? I got the loan in their early 80s. And now I can't see the rest of your question. So for you, you would have to ask yourself the question of who you work for if you want to do the forgiveness side of things. So if you've worked for a qualified employer and if you've had it since the 80s, have you been making any payments on your Perkins loans? And if you were making payments on your Perkins loans, were you working with a qualified employer during that time? And the other option for you could be the one-time debt relief. As long as you meet the income criteria, you'll be able to get up to either $10K or $20K canceled if you meet the income criteria. And that's regardless of the type of loan that you have. I did a breakdown of how the payouts would be for the one-time debt relief. That shows the order in which the $20K or the $10K will be paid out. And depending on the types of loans that you have, the Perkins loans will get paid out last. But if Perkins loans is all you have and you meet the income criteria for the one-time debt relief, then if you were a Pell Grant recipient, then you'll get up to $20,000 forgiven for your Perkins loans. And if you were not a Pell Grant recipient, then you'll get up to $10,000 forgiven under your Perkins loan, if that's the only loan type that you have. Thank you all so much for the follows and the shares. I appreciate it. Continue to let other people inside of the room as we have this conversation. What about private loans? So I do have a playlist that's available on my page for private loans. Again, the options are very limited, but feel free to check out that playlist that's on my page for private loans. What options are available for private loans? What if I just started at a nonprofit? If you just started at a nonprofit organization, then you would want to begin to have your history or have your employment certified. So again, you still have to do 120 qualified payments while working with a qualified employer in order for you to get the public service loan forgiveness. And again, the nonprofit that you work for, it has to be a 501c3. And if it is not a 501c3, it has to be a nonprofit that provides one of the qualifying services. Okay, a lot of you all are asking questions about not being employed and if you could still get the forgiveness. Remember, the one-time debt relief is based on your income, and it's going to be based on your income from 2021. how long does it take for borrower's defense? It could take a very long time, to be honest. It's no telling how long it'll take for them to make a decision around it. But as long as you get your applications in and you provide whatever necessary support that would help, would work to your benefit. For any borrower's defense claims that were deemed as valid, the Department of Education has indicated that they will grant the discharge for claims that have been submitted, and then it should be automatic for everyone else. However, it would depend on what the findings are. So you would have to look at the findings in terms of the outcome of what the borrower's defense group came to terms with and what the settlement comes out to be in order for those payouts or those discharges to be able to take place. I attended 2 of the schools on the list, didn't graduate. Would I qualify for borrower's defense? If the school is on the list and it was listed as a school that they're relieving or discharging the loans for any students that went to the school during that specific time frame, again, you would have to look at the findings to see if you went to school during that period and then follow up from there. I have both direct and other loans not direct. Doesn't make sense to consolidate. Again, you want to look at the scenario for yourself by utilizing the loan simulator. The loan simulator will allow you to choose all of your federal student loan options and which ones you want to consolidate and which ones you don't want to, and see if it makes sense for you financially to do that. Because once you consolidate, you want to take into consideration that your interest rates are going to change. You also have to take into consideration that any unpaid interest on those prior loans will now become capitalized, because when you consolidate, they're taking the entire balance and they're rolling it into a new loan, which is going to be assigned a new interest rate. And whatever your repayment terms is, depending on which repayment plan you choose, is going to drive how much your payment is going to be. So I would definitely utilize the loan simulator that's available at studentaid.gov/loan-simulator. Log in, select your options, your information, your loan types, and see what the outcome will be before you actually submit. Because that's the purpose of the loan simulator, to help you all make a decision, to help you assess before you make a decision. Is FFELP Stafford subsidized a direct loan? So no, a direct loan, any loans that you have that are direct will say direct in the loan description or in the loan details. So the same place where you see FFEL, that means that's the type of loan that you have. So you have an FFEL loan. So if you have an FFEL loan and you know that you've been making payments on these for a while and you work for a qualified employer, then it will be to your advantage, give or take. Don't take my word for it. Do your scenarios, utilize the loan simulator, but for you to consolidate into a direct loan so that you won't lose your prior periods that you've made as long as you were working with a qualified employer during that time. If you are not working with a qualified employer and you never have worked with a qualified employer, but you just so happen to have FFELP loans or FFEL loans, you would be focused on the one-time debt relief. And in that instance, it's based on how much you make, and that will determine whether or not you get the 20 or the 10. My loans are consolidated and are on direct. What's the chances of my loans being forgiven? So again, it'll be based on which loan program relief type that you're going after. So if you consolidated your loans and if you've done that for public service loan forgiveness purposes, again, this is based on who you work for, then you would have to do the 120 qualified periods while working with a qualified employer for 10 years in order to get the relief, in order to get the forgiveness, in order to get the forgiveness. If you do not work for a qualified employer and you consolidate it because you wanted to be able to lower your interest rates or whatever your decision was whenever you consolidated way back when, but you don't work for a qualified employer, your only focus would be the one-time debt relief, and it will be up to those caps, either 10 or 20. When will the process start? So I'm assuming that this question is pertaining to the one-time debt relief because that's the only one that is not like yet available in terms of application purposes. But the process for the one-time debt relief, the applications will be made available, or is said to be made available, by early October. So as long as you are keeping your eye out for when the application goes live, you will be able to submit your application for the one-time debt relief. So that way the Department of Education could get your income information. They have it already for a lot. Oh, that's what I wanted to show y'all. I meant to show you guys, and I'm probably going to do a whole video on this as well, but it just popped in my head because you asked that question. They literally have a whole list, and I'm finna show this to y'all. They have a whole list by state of those who they already know will get the 10K versus the 20K, and then they have a certain amount that they know is unknown. So that pool that's unknown is the people that's going to need to get their applications in ASAP, because that means the Department of Education does not have their income data. But let me see if I can find this real quick, and I'll show it to you all. And I'm also going to do a video on this as well. But this just is going to be real quick. Where is it? Because I saw it this morning because I was going through my emails. I was going through my emails this morning. I still have a lot of emails, 230 something emails to go through. Boom. Here we go. So let me show you this. All right, I'm gonna try to make this big. Can I blow this up? Okay, here's the zoom so that you all can read it. And this was just released yesterday. Y'all ready? I said, are y'all ready? Are you ready? Feel free to share this out too, because I'm finna drop these gems real quick. All right, so this was just released. You see this? So the benefit is for tens of millions of borrowers in 50 states. So this is the estimated, and you see the website right here, studentaid.gov, debt relief. You go there, it'll take you right to it. But do you see this breakout? Estimated number of borrowers eligible for student debt relief, and it's rounded to the nearest 100th. And they have it by state. So if you see your state, you see this, share this out while you can. Share this out. Let folks know. It's broken out by state. One side is Pell Grant recipient and one side is non-Pell Grant. So they're literally saying that all of these people by state, that they already have their income information and they're saying that they're eligible. This piece right here, unknown, that means that they do not have income information for at least 3.6 7 million borrowers. Who were non-Pell Grant recipients. For those who were Pell Grant recipients, they don't have information for at least 1.3. Do y'all see this? Do y'all get this? Is this helpful? So this is a lot of borrowers who have federal loans, and those who were non-Pell Grant recipients and those who were. And they're breaking it out by state. So in the coming weeks, the Department of Education will release additional details on how individuals across the country can benefit from the administration's student debt relief plan. This is the application that's going to be standing up in early October. It's not available yet. This was just released yesterday. You guys see this date. Okay? So I'm not making stuff up. I'm getting it right from the source. I'm getting it right from the source. I just consolidated mine from Navient to, I think, Mohila. Because if you're doing it for public service loan forgiveness purposes, then Mohila is going to become your loan servicer anyway. Gotta apply for PSLF. Shouldn't they know your income by filing your taxes? So the only reason why they would need to know your income is for the one-time debt relief purposes. And so, yeah, so one of the ways in which they can retrieve your data, they can get your income from the IRS, but there are some situations where some people may not have filed taxes because not everybody has to file. Not everybody has to file. So some people may not have to file their taxes. Some people may not have any FAFSA data on file, recent FAFSA data on file, which would mean that they don't have their income from a tax perspective. So that's why they're saying they have it for majority, but there are some that they don't have, which I just showed you guys based on that release. Do I submit the application for PSLF to Mohila, Advantage, or studentaid.gov? So the application is going to be sent to Mohila because Mohila is the new loan service provider for public service loan forgiveness accounts. So when you fill out the application on, I think it's maybe I can't remember which page, but it'll tell you where to send it. You can mail it in, you could fax it in, or you could upload it directly under your profile if you already have a Mohila account. Can you get debt relief for Parent Plus loans plus the one loan your child got? So again, this will be based on the borrower. So the debt relief is by borrower and not necessarily by loan type. So depending on how much you make will determine whether or not if you qualify for the one-time debt relief. So if you as a Parent Plus loan holder for a loan that you took out for your child, as long as you meet the income criteria based on your tax filing status, that will determine how much you get. If you now have a child who has loans of their own, but maybe they file their own tax returns and they are underneath the threshold, then they could be eligible for the one-time debt relief as well. So it's by borrower. If you do not have the full 120, will they look at, say, 100 payments and forgive those? It has to be 120 for public service loan forgiveness purposes. It cannot be less than that. Thank you for providing people information on student loan forgiveness. You're so welcome, and thank you so much for being here in attendance and listening. I just want to help out as much as I can. Hey, I just saw Glam Rocks. Gosh, and the screen rolled down. Hey, Glam Rocks. I just saw your name. I didn't see what you said, but I just saw your name. Hey, Glam Rocks. It scrolled down. Let me see. I don't know where it was. That means y'all cranking in these comments. That's why I keep scrolling down for me to get to the bottom. I really don't know where I was, you guys, so I apologize. I owe $179,000 in Parent Plus loans. Help. Ooh, my heart goes out to you. Again, if Parent Plus loans are the only loan type that you have, it is unfortunate that the only possible way that you can get any type of relief related to this is either through getting the 10 or the 20 debt relief, which will take it down to either 169 or 159, depending on which one you qualify for. And then the other option would be the the public service loan forgiveness if you work for a qualified employer. But again, you would have to consolidate your Parent Plus loan into a direct loan, and then you would still have to do 120 qualified payments while working with a qualified employer for at least 10 years. So your situation may be a little bit sticky because I don't know who you work for, how long you've been there, like what your service history is looking like. So, and then even still, if you've only had Parent Plus loans, even if you consolidate, if you are eligible for public service loan forgiveness, even if you consolidate, you're still going to have to do 10 more years before you can get any forgiveness for public service loan forgiveness purposes. I have 110 PSLF qualified payments from previous loans, and now I'm with new loans. What should I do? So if you have new loans, number one, you want to make sure that the new loans that you have are direct loans, because what you don't want to do is have these new loans under a non-direct loan. And then once you get to the 120, all of your direct loans are going to be forgiven and not the new ones. So I don't know what your new loan type is. Is your new loan type direct? Is it something else? So I would look into that. But if your new loans are direct, then you should be good. If your new loans are direct, you're going to be good. Because remember, once you hit 120, the remaining balance will be forgiven. However, let me say this, because if you have new loans, does this mean that you're now in school status? So the only way that you could save yourself from losing or postponing or delaying you getting the relief getting the forgiveness once you hit the 120 is to opt out of in-school deferment. That would be my suggestion. That would be what I would do. Let me say that because I don't want to seem like I'm giving y'all advice and then y'all come back and say, I done told you to do X, Y, and Z. So you want to look at, are you in school status now because you're back in school because you got a new loan? Because if you have a new loan, then more than likely you're in school status, right or wrong. So if that's the case and you are 10 payments away and the new loans that you took out is a direct loan, I personally would opt out of in-school deferment so that I don't miss any of these qualifying periods. Does the forgiveness apply to graduate loans or just undergraduate loans? Again, it doesn't matter the loan type. It's based on the loan program. So it has to be a direct loan for public service loan forgiveness purposes. For the one-time debt relief, it doesn't matter. What is the best route to take for PSLF? Where to start? The best place to start is by going to studentaid.gov/PSLF and reading through the criteria to ensure that you meet the criteria for public service loan forgiveness. and looking at your loan details and your loan summary to see which loans you have that would qualify, and if you have loans that would qualify under this limited waiver, if you need to take any action, i.e. consolidate in order to get it to be allowable under the limited time waiver for public service loan forgiveness purposes. So the first step would, number one, be to identify the type of loans that you have. So log into your FSA ID account, look at your loan summary, look at your loan details, look at what the loan type is, and if there's anything that is not a direct loan, you want to pay attention to the balances that are associated with each of those loans that are non-direct, and you want to identify if you either have a Perkins loan or an FFEL loan that can then be consolidated into a direct consolidation loan so that those periods won't be lost after consolidation. If you already have direct loans, you don't have to consolidate anything. You now just have to focus on getting your employment certification forms in or your PSLF forms in to cover all of the periods in which you worked for a qualified employer. So the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, the benefit, this forgiveness stood up October 1, 2007. So for any employment, any payments that you've made from October 1, 2007 up until now can be part of the pool for qualified payment consideration. So when we're talking about the payments, there's going to be some instances where your payments could be eligible or ineligible. So if you have ineligible payments, that means more than likely you made payments during a period in which you may not have a employer certification. I'm not even going to say that. You may have been working, you may have payments that you have made while you were working with a qualified employer, but you weren't working enough hours to meet the eligibility. There could be another pool where you have eligible payments. However, they may not have a certification form to cover the periods that they need or that you need to be able to supply. So once you get your public service loan forgiveness forms in, they're going to start counting this stuff, and you're going to be able to see your dashboards. You're going to be able to see if you have eligible payments versus ineligible payments, and they're going to explain to you or show you why that is. So if there is something that you see that's ineligible, I would question that to see, well, what's the reason why it's ineligible? And then maybe if it was ineligible before, if you get your forms or they may still be trying to update the counts under this limited waiver piece to make those payments that might have been ineligible in the past now eligible. Because remember, under the limited waiver, you can be making payments on any repayment plan. You could also have made partial or not payments, partial payments or payments late because it had to be on time. You can also get periods of forbearance and deferment, as I explained earlier. So all of these counts, they're going to have to take into consideration and add up under this limited time waiver. But in order for you to take advantage of that, you have to at least have one public service loan forgiveness form in. You at least have to have one. But again, with your forms, you still have to cover the periods that they need. Meaning you have to certify your employment for all of those years. However many years that you've been making payments, that's eligible. Anything to be forgiven. I'm BIS with new loans. I don't know what BIS stands for. I'm sorry, I don't know what that acronym means. Mine have been in forbearance some time. Would I qualify? I just consolidated 2 weeks ago. Will I be eligible for the one-time relief? Yes. So this is a good point, and let me explain this piece too. So if you recently consolidated, I don't want you to think that you're going to now lose out on your possibility or your eligibility for the one-time debt relief, because when it comes to the one-time debt relief, they are basing it on underlying loans that were distributed either on or before June 30, 2022. So you have to remember, when it comes to your consolidation, you are consolidating loans that were already originally dispersed however many moons ago. So when it comes to the one-time debt relief, which is the $20K or the $10K, they're basing it on when was that original loan dispersed, not when the consolidation payout was dispersed, but when your original loan that was taken out was dispersed. That's what they're going to base it on, because any new loans that were taken out July 1, 2022 will not be eligible for the one-time relief. So you would have to have had loans that were dispersed on or before June 30, 2022 to receive any form of relief. Any payments have to be made in order to get it forgiven. Again, I think you guys are still commingling your questions between one-time debt relief and public service loan forgiveness. These are two different things. Public service loan forgiveness, you do have to have 120 qualified payments. For the one-time debt relief, the number of payments, your repayment status, none of that matters. It's just based on how much you make. Who can you contact to verify the number of months I need to complete my service loan forgiveness form? And so that's where you would submit your forms. So your loan servicer are doing the counts. And you should be able to view your loan details. You should be able to see your entire repayment history for any loans that you've made. You should be able to see when your loan originated. You should be able to see all of these details inside of your profile in some way, shape, or form. If it moved from one servicer to another, that may be a little bit more challenging to see, because you probably lose access to all of that history for you to be able to verify it on your own. But what we have to remember is that even each of these loan servicers, that payment history, those payment counts, all of that stuff, it has to be submitted inside of the I think it's the NSDL, don't quote me, but it's the national, let me see if I can look it up. I think it's DS, I think is what it is. Yeah, NSLD. Sometimes I surprise myself how I remember all of these acronyms, but it's the National Student Loan Data System. So the National Student Loan Data System, everything is reported there. So that system feeds is essentially the database that the Department of Education is retrieving the information from. So whenever the loan servicers show when you made your payment or when you did this or what the status is, all of that stuff is inside the National Student Loan Data System. So now how to get access to the National Student Loan Data System, that's really professional. So everybody can't get access to that. You have to have authorized access to be able to get into the National Student Loan Data System. However, with you having access to your federal student aid account, you'll be able to see all of your loan details and your balances and so forth. And when you go through your loan servicer, you'll be able to see all of your own payment histories and all of that. But if you move from one to one, it'll probably be challenging to see. But nonetheless, that data is in this NSLDS system, which the Department of Education has access to. So if you are wondering whether or not if what your loan servicer is sharing in terms of the dashboard of what's your qualified payment counts are or how much further you have to go, if you disagree with that, you can always submit a request for reconsideration. And that's especially too if you just get denied for public service loan forgiveness. You can request reconsideration and they'll go through the process of doing a recount. Whew. Okay, y'all said yes. I don't know what y'all said yes to. I need to submit mine. I just don't know how. So if you need to submit your public service loan forgiveness form, the tool will walk you through it. Please go to studentaid.gov/PSLF. Once you go to that site, it'll prompt you to utilize the PSLF help tool. The help tool will then pull up all of the screens and you'll put in the EINs. You're going to need your employer identification number in order to fill it out. You're going to need that anyway, regardless, even if you do the paper form or if you do the PDF form, you're still going to need to fill that out. You're still going to need the EIN. But once you get that information, I would definitely use the tool to populate the form because it'll literally walk you through it. And then once you get all of your employers in, all you got to do is just download, click, print, and get your employers to sign it. And then you send it in. What's the website again? Okay, I'll share the website. I share several websites, but I'll run through them. So for public service loan forgiveness, it's studentaid.gov/PSLF. For the one-time debt relief, it's studentaid.gov/debt relief. If you want to leverage the loan simulator, it's studentaid.gov/loan-simulator. If you have questions related to borrower's defense, you would go to studentaid.gov/borrower-defense. And what was the other site that I went over? The tax exempt organizations, if you're having challenges with getting your EIN verified by your employer, if they are a nonprofit organization, then you can leverage the IRS's tax exempt search tool. The URL is very long, so it's just easier to just type in Google IRS tax exempt search tool, tax exempt organization search, and it'll pop right up. Google will be your best friend, you guys. It really will. Will they tell us if we don't need to fill out the application in the loan forgiveness program? I'm assuming you may mean if they will tell you if you don't need to fill out the application for the one-time debt relief. The only way that, because there's some people are saying that it's automatic. As I've said before in prior streams and lives that I've done, I have not personally seen anyone who has automatically received the debt relief, which is the 10K or the 20K. Yet some people have said that they've gotten it automatically. The Department of Education had initially said that it was going to happen automatically for those who they have the income data for. But they encouraged everyone for the one-time debt relief, if you know that you qualify based on the eligibility that we've discussed, then they're encouraging everyone to put their applications in so that no one gets missed. So that's what they are encouraging. But in terms of will they let you know or not, I would say to make sure that I don't miss out on the one-time debt relief, to log into your FSA ID account, update your notifications, make sure that your email address is accurate, make sure that your cell phone or your contact information is accurate, so that way you can opt in for text message or email alerts, so that way once the one-time debt relief application is made available, you will be the first to know and you can get your application in. So that is how you will be notified, essentially, if you need to fill out the application for the one-time debt relief. For the loan forgiveness, you have to submit an application or form where you have to certify, so that you're going to have to do. Oh, thank you, TikTok. TikTok said that some comments were filtered to protect the community's experience. So some of y'all comments I'm not seeing, just to let y'all know. I don't know what y'all saying, but they filtering stuff out. But thank you. All right, some of these are repeat questions. Is the PSLF employer verification due each year? So the employer certification is not a requirement for you to do it each year, but it is recommended and suggested and encouraged that you do it each year, because it makes it easier if people go from employer to employer, which is what a lot of people are having challenges with now, and trying to get their certification signed from folks who they used to work for however many moons or years ago. So they encourage that you get it certified every year, which is your employment, because that's what they're trying to cover. They're trying to make sure that you still work for a qualified employer during that year that you're making your payments, because they're going to bounce up your employment period against the payments that's already in the system, or the counts that are already in the system from your loan service provider. So the purpose of you filling out your form is to ensure that you're certifying that, hey, I still work for a qualified employer for public service loan forgiveness purposes only. I still work for a qualified employer. So it's encouraged that you do it, but you don't have to do it every year. But to make it easy on yourself, I would. I wish they would give partial credit if you didn't hit 120. I know. For the public service loan forgiveness, yeah, they're strict on that 120. I don't think they're going to budge on that. Which is why they're incorporating the limited waiver to give those extra counts, because the original PSLF is very strict. It's very strict. Only for direct loans. You got to be working for the qualified employer. It had to be on time. It could not be late, and it had to be for the full amount. And so now and you couldn't be in certain forbearance statuses and so forth. So, and you had to be on a specific repayment plan. So there are a lot of restrictions that's under the regular PSLF. And so when this limited waiver was announced last year, they were really trying to incorporate a way to provide more relief to people who essentially could qualify for public service loan forgiveness quicker. So this is the advantage of the limited waiver, and why they're encouraging everyone, if you work for a qualified employer, or if you've ever worked for a qualified employer, to get your certification forms in, to get your PSLF form in. When do you do the job certification for PSLF? Okay, I think I just answered that. Do these forms have to go to each employer? Yes. So you do have to get your sections signed by each employer who is a qualified employer. So let's say, for example, you've been paying for the last 15 years and you've worked for maybe 5 different qualifying employers. You literally have to go back to, if you don't have them already, you're literally going to have to go back to these 5 different employers and get them to sign off on your section 3, which is the employment certification section inside of the form. And if your employer is no longer in existence, and you would check that box to say the employer is no longer in business, but you will still, there's a separate page. It'll have to be a separate page for each employer. And this is why I'm saying that the PSLF help tool is the best option to use for generating your public service loan forgiveness forms, because as you use the tool to create the form, it's going to create all of the section 3s that you need, instead of you printing out the application however many times to cover all of the different employers. If you utilize the help tool, it'll create 5 section 3s for you, and you print it out all in one form, and then you just have each employer, you send each employer that section that they need and have them sign it and send it back to you. And it has to be a valid signature. Let me talk about this real quick. It has to be a valid signature. It cannot be a digital signature. They're not accepting that yet. So it has to be either an ink signature, or it could be a photo image of an actual signature. It cannot be like a typed name in cursive. It can't be the digital signatures. It has to be like an ink wet photo or a photo image of a signature is all that they're accepting right now. And it has to be someone who is authorized to validate your employment. My Parent Plus loan is FFEL 2009, have not paid, am I eligible? So if you're talking about the one-time debt relief, which is the 10K or the 20K, as long as you meet the income criteria, you can get up to 20 or 10 for that if you are a Pell Grant recipient or if you are not. If you're talking about you being a public service loan worker and you have FFEL, then you want to take advantage of this limited waiver, because you can consolidate your FFEL loans and your Perkins loan into a direct consolidation loan, and you will not lose any of the prior periods that you might have paid, even if they were in forbearance, because you said that you have not paid anything, but it could be that your payment requirement was 0. So then the question that I would have for you is, what was your payment requirement since 2009? What was your payment requirement since 2019? Excuse me. So if you were required to make a payment and you didn't make a payment, then more than likely your loans. Oh, hold on. I must have misread that. My Parent Plus loan is FFEL. If you have a Parent Plus loan, I don't even see how that's even possible. Your Parent Plus loan is FFEL. But in order for you to get public service loan forgiveness, it has to be direct. So either way, you're going to have to consolidate. But remember to use the loan simulator. Don't just take my word for it. But for the one-time debt relief, you don't have to consolidate. What if your loans are in default? If your loans are in default for the one-time debt relief, it doesn't matter. The 10K or the 20K, your defaulted loans will get addressed first. So that's the first order of priority. Defaulted loans that are managed by the Department of Education will get addressed first with the one-time debt relief monies. If you are eligible for public service loan forgiveness and your loans are in default, then unfortunately, you can't get the forgiveness while your loans are in default. You would have to get them out of forgiveness. And the 2 ways to get them out of forgiveness is by getting a rehabilitation loan or a consolidation loan. And that will bring it in good standing. And then once you consolidate or get the rehabilitation and it's in good standing, then any periods under those terms will help you towards public service loan forgiveness. So if you have Navient loans, are they not part of the government forbearance? I think it depends on your type. So, because some people, you want to look at what does your loan description say. Does it say Department of Education when you open up your Navient account? And when you look at your loan details, just log into your Navient account, look at your loan details. What does the description say? Does it say Department of Education direct? Does it say FFEL? Like, you want to look at it to see if it's federal or not. Or you could just go inside of your student aid account as well. Are we able to get both PSLF and a relief? Yes, as long as you qualify for both. Yes, you can. Can you apply for both types? Yes, you can. Moved from Sally Mae to Navient. Who do I confirm total number of payments with? Again, for public service loan forgiveness purposes, if you work for a public service loan, if you work for a public service organization, you just submit your public service loan forms and then they will do the count. How do I get proof for work certification on direct loans? Just go to your employer, fill out the public service loan forgiveness form. If you're talking about public service loan forgiveness, I mean, you would if you're trying to do a certification. So you would fill out the form and then submit that employer section to someone in your HR office or to someone who is authorized to confirm and validate your employment. And your job should be able to do that, or your former employer should be able to do that. Nilnet servicer, PSLF form, done, went to Fed Loan. Mohila has it now. Okay, yep, so that's where it should go. So Mohila is the new loan servicer for all public service loan forgiveness accounts. And so with that, if you submitted a public service loan forgiveness form, it's going to end up moving to Mohila anyway, and it's nothing that you need to do. It's automatic. Some they're transferring them or moving them over in phases. So eventually everyone who is public service loan forgiveness will end up being their account will end up being a Mohila account for loan servicer purposes only. Your loans will still be federal. It's just that Mohila is the loan service provider in tracking all of that, and also who you're going to be, remitting your payments to and so forth. Can you repeat that? I'm not sure what I said. I'm not sure what I said and what you want me to repeat, but let me know what you want me to repeat, and then I'll do that. Haven't started paying anything on my Parent Plus loan, 2019 FFEL. Am I eligible? Jake, again, it depends on who you work for. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. If you're talking about the public service loan forgiveness or if you're talking about the debt relief, I've explained it several times that debt relief, it doesn't matter who you work for. It doesn't matter your income status. I'm sorry, it does matter your income status. It doesn't matter who you work for. It doesn't matter your repayment status on your loan. It doesn't matter what kind of loan you have. It's just based on your income. But for public service loan forgiveness purposes, if you are trying to qualify for that and you have FFEL loans, then you might want to consolidate your Parent Plus and your FFEL into a direct loan in order to get those qualifying periods that would have counted under the FFEL to work towards your advantage. But if you just did this in 2019, then you don't have enough years. You wouldn't have enough years to get you to 120 at this point. So unless your FFEL loans were long ago, which I believe if you have FFEL loans, because they sunsetted the program, I believe in 2015. So if you have FFEL loans, then that means your loans would have been originated prior to that. But let me confirm. I'm sorry, you guys, if I'm huffing and puffing, but I have a terrible headache. It's been a very long day for me at work. So I'm trying to push through and give you this information, even though my head is like pounding right now. So, okay, I stand corrected. It ended in 2010. So FFEL, that ended in 2010. So, yeah. So that means if you have FFEL, then your loans originated prior to 2010. Yeah, 2010. And then that means you probably have Parent Plus loans that you've taken out in 2019. So now I'm starting to make sense of your question, Jake, now that I'm looking at this. So that gives what? If you qualify, if you were working for a qualified employer during that time, then it would be to your advantage to consider the public service loan forgiveness process. Should I apply for PSLF if I have less than 120 payments? So when you complete the form, there's a certification section at the top of the form that prompts you to check options between 3 different boxes. The first box is essentially you saying that you know that you don't meet the 100, that you know that you haven't made the 120 qualified payments yet, but you just want them to tell you how close you are. The second box is that you believe that you've met the 120, and so you want to go ahead and apply for forgiveness at this point. And then the third option is because you check box 2 and you know that they're going to have to do their counts and so forth, you're checking box 3 to say, because I believe I've met the 120, I want you to place my loans into forbearance now, so that way you won't have to be considered to pay while they're trying to count all your stuff up and verify you for public service loan forgiveness. So if you know that you do not have 120 payments, then you have to check the first box in the application to say that you haven't met the 120, but you want to know how close you are. Because if you check the second box and you know that you haven't met 120, you're going to get a denial letter. Because when you check the second box, you're saying that you are essentially saying, I'm ready for forgiveness at this point. And if you know you haven't met the 120, then you're not. So if you don't know for sure, do not check the box saying that you certified and that you're ready to apply, because they're going to give you a denial letter. Direct loans, how to get certification proof. I don't understand the question. I haven't started payment on my Parent Plus loan. Am I still eligible? So does that mean that it's still in school status? Let me see. 2019, 18, 20, 21, 22, 20. Well, okay. So if you've taken out a Parent Plus loan, that may be a sticky one, because if it's still in school status for the Parent Plus loan, you may not be able to consolidate. But check with the loan simulator to see if it gives you the option to consolidate. That's what I would do if you're public service loan forgiveness eligible. Thank you for all you do. This has really helped me. You are a blessing. Oh, thank you so much, Carolyn. It makes me feel a little better to hear this, especially, when you're trying to give information and push through when you're not feeling 100%. So I thank you for your patience today and for taking action and utilizing the information that I'm sharing. I retired from public service before the required number of payments. Would I still qualify? So if you retire before the required number of payments, you may or may not. You may or may not, to be honest with you. But I can look into that a little bit further to see how that works. Okay. I haven't started payments on my PPL. My daughter just got student loan this fall. Does she qualify? When was this fall? So she just started school. I can't remember when fall and all that stuff starts. I thought fall started in August. So if the fall season for her, and this is her first, if she's a freshman in school and she took out a loan, then more than likely that disbursement happened after June 30. And so if that's the case, then she would not be eligible for the one-time debt relief. because it has to be loans that originated prior to July 1. Ooh, you guys, I'm trying to hang in here, but my head is like, it's rocking. It is rocking. I'm trying to push through for you guys, but I'm gonna probably close out in like 15 minutes. Ooh. PSLF, I sent my form in, but I may be too shy. I may be just shy of 10 years. Unfortunately, I no longer work there. Oh, man. Yeah, go ahead and put it in and see. You never know. You never know. What's the income max to qualify? Single or married. So this is for the one-time debt relief. So if you are single or married filing separately, then you have to make less than $150,000 to qualify for the one-time debt relief of either $10K or $20K. If you are head of household or if you are married filing jointly, then you have to make less than $250,000. So $125,000 for single or married filing separately, and then it's double for those who are head of household or married filing jointly, so $250,000. Good evening. Are student loans still being transferred to Mohila? Student loans that are being transferred to Mohila are those who qualify or who have submitted applications for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. So only those who are PSLF will end up moving to Mohila. We do have there are some other loan service providers that are no longer deemed as loan service providers by the Department of Education. So they are being switched from different places. So for example, Navient accounts is being or have been moved to, I think it's Aidvantage. So they've taken over for Navient because Navient is no longer a loan servicer for the Department of Education. But for Mohila, they are taking all public service loan forgiveness accounts. So if you put in an application for public service loan forgiveness, then yes, Mohila is going to end up being your loan servicer at that point. Okay. I am expected to have a certain number of payments. How do I check myself? I was just sharing this a little bit earlier. The only way that you could potentially check yourself is by looking at your own loan details. Looking at your loan details, depending on who your loan servicer is. Looking at how many payments you've made. Looking at if you were in forbearance, what periods were you in forbearance? In what periods were you in forbearance? What periods were you in deferment? And then bouncing that up against who you worked for. Luckily, if you've been with the same employer the entire time, or if you've been with a qualified employer the entire time, and you know that you've worked at least 30 hours a week with that employer, then you know that your employment period is not going to be an issue, but you want to be able to verify the number of payments, whether if it was partial payments, especially under this limited time waiver period, partial payments, forbearance periods, deferment periods, and so forth. So it's literally going to be you checking into your account to cross-reference what you believe your dashboard is telling you what your eligible payments are. So that's the only thing that I could suggest and recommend to you if you want to be able to check yourself, is by looking at your own student loan account details and looking at the payment history to be able to verify that. Just days in good standing. Says in good standing. What was the other part of your question? Okay, now that PSLF form done. Went to fill on Mohila, has it now. Okay, and that's the other piece of it. It says it's in good standing. Yeah, so if it says it's in good standing, you want to make sure that you pay attention to the counts at this point. So you want to be viewing your dashboard to see how close you are to eligibility for the forgiveness. So how close you are to the 120. That's a beautiful hat. You look lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. About getting a text or email for debt relief. I'm assuming you're asking, how do you go about that? So if you log into your FSA ID account, you're going to log into your FSA ID account and you're going to log into your profile settings or wherever your settings are, and you're going to make sure that your contact information is correct, your email address, your cell number, and there's going to be an option for you to opt in to receive alerts. If you opt in to receive alerts from the Department of Education, then they'll send you updates via email or via text. Another option that you may want to do is to sign up on their subscription page. So I share with you all that the student debt relief site is available. If you go to studentaid.gov/debt relief, that page will summarize all of the changes that are expected to come as a result of the 3-part plan that was announced on August 24th. And it will tell you or send you or give you rather the link to click on to subscribe to the Department of Education to receive notifications on specific things. So there's 2 ways that you can go about it: directly opting in under your FSA ID account, or going to studentaid.gov/debt relief and clicking on that link that says subscribe to the Department of Education's list. And when you click on that, it'll give you a lot of options. You may not want to check all of the boxes because your emails will be flooded, but look through the listing that they share, and then whatever you want information on, you check that box and put in your email address, subscribe, and then you'll get all updates related to the debt relief via email. I just did my application for PS11, mailing it off tomorrow. Thanks to this live. Come on, that's what I'm talking about. Continue to take action. I'm loving it. And please keep me updated and posted on your status. Just continue to monitor it too. So once you mail it off, one thing when you mail it off, I will always suggest and recommend that you send it off via tracking. So that way you can have evidence of you sending it, and also you can have evidence of it being delivered to MOHELA. And then you also want to make sure that you keep a copy of your forms. So if you did your application and you got all of your signatures, make sure that you keep a copy before you send it, because you don't want to go through the rigmarole of sending off what you had to go through so much to get signed, and then something happens or whatever the case may be, and now your originals didn't get to them. So I highly suggest and encourage each of you, if you are eligible for public service loan forgiveness and you're filling out your forms and you're ready to either mail them in, make sure that you keep a copy for yourself, and make sure when you mail it that you send it via tracking. So that could be priority mail or whatever, because I don't know if they're going to sign it if you send it certified. They may not, but I would just say to have evidence of it being delivered is good enough. It's good enough. But whatever your preference is, if you want them to certify and sign for it, then you can send it in. You can mail it via certified. Okay, can I get forgiveness because of my age? Unfortunately, it's not really based on age. It's more so for public service loan forgiveness. It's based on who you work for, but you may be able to receive the one-time debt relief. You may be able to receive the one-time debt relief. My loan is in forbearance since last year. So do I call and ask if I qualify? So if you are a public servant, meaning you work in public service and your loans were in forbearance, especially more than likely due to the COVID, because we were on the repayment pause, then those periods should count automatically. But I don't know if you work for a qualified employer or not. Thank you all so much for following and for sharing this out. I'm hoping that this live stream is helping you all. Okay, what happens if this is challenged? SCOTUS said that Biden didn't have the authority. So here's what we have to remember, and I did a video on this where I talked about where the authority is actually granted under. So the HEROES Act of 2003 was announced, and what the Department of Education did as it pertains to this particular debt relief, they already have the authority under that act, because the HEROES Act is designed to give borrowers relief, student borrowers or students in general relief during times of WAR. I'm not going to say it because I don't want it to get flagged or shut down or whatever, but during times of WAR or during times of economic disadvantages, or not really that, national disasters. And because COVID was considered a national disaster, was we not shut down for a whole year practically when the world went on lockdown? It was considered a national disaster. So because we are now in this space of still trying to recoup and recover from that, that's where the authority comes from. So I don't know why they will believe it's being challenged, because the authority was already, the legislation was already provided under the HEROES Act. You can look it up yourself, HEROES Act of 2003. And it stood up after 9/11. So they exercising their authority under that act, because that act gave them the ability to be able to do so in times of national disaster, in which COVID is one. Why won't they forgive private loans? Because it's not a federal benefit. Because it wasn't given through federal money. It's private money. So that's why they won't forgive private loans. Okay, you're welcome. Is there a service or company that will do this for us? So to be honest with you all, your loan servicer is supposed to provide assistance with helping you walk through this. This is really easy, and you really do not need anyone to do this for you. You don't have to pay anyone to do this for you. When it comes to the public service loan forgiveness, all you have to do is put in who you work for. That's essentially all you have to do. You have to put in your social security number. You have to put in your address. You have to put in, you want to check the box to say whether or not if you feel like you met the 120. If you haven't met the 120, you just want to know how much. Or if you want them to put your loans in forbearance because you feel like you met the 120. And then the rest of the sections are your employment history. So all you have to do for public service loan forgiveness purposes is just put your form in. And when it comes to you needing help with consolidation, you could use the loan simulator or even contact your loan service provider to give you that assistance. But it sounds like it may be some sticky situations that's coming up, because some people have been saying, oh, my loan services, they're trying to get me to consolidate. But I don't know what their rationale is. But again, if you're taking not only what I'm sharing, but if you're taking what is available on the internet, on the Department of Education, because you do want to make sure that you're validating this against an authoritative source and not from these .coms. So you need to take this information from a .gov site. And when you're looking, you're literally just going to say, what kind of loans do I have? Would I qualify? Do I not have? Are there any loans that I do not have? Are there any loans that I have that are not direct? Do I need to consolidate? Log into the FSA ID account, complete the loan consolidation. Just answer the questions. They even have, and it depends on who they may have nonprofit organizations that may assist with this, but you shouldn't have to pay. You shouldn't have to pay anyone to do anything unless you want to pay for a consultation for someone to help navigate you or walk you through it. That's something different. But even then, you can get your loan servicer to help you with that. But I think some people may have trust issues with the loan servicer, but technically the loan servicer should be able to walk you through that. But theoretically, utilizing a tool for public service loan forgiveness purposes, that can help you fill out the form quickly. But when it comes to consolidation, some people aren't sure whether or not if they should or if they shouldn't. Then that is more of a consultation of you trying to figure that out, which may or may not be something that the loan servicer would do. So I've worked for a nonprofit for over 10 years. Does income sensitive payment apply in deferred time? So as long as your nonprofit organization is a 501c3, and if it's not a 501c3, it has to be a nonprofit that provides one of the qualifying services. And you would have to be on a qualified repayment plan. And again, under this limited waiver time, it doesn't matter what plan you're on. So it doesn't matter what repayment plan that you're on, that they will be counting, that they will be counting these things. I finished my direct loan consolidation, but it has been approved. It hasn't been approved yet. Do I send in the PSLF form? Yes, I would. I would go ahead and send it into MOHELA, because what's going to happen is MOHELA is going to hold it until your consolidation finishes. And then when your consolidation finishes, that's when they'll begin to process your form. But as long as you get it in before the October 31 is what you want to make sure that you do, so that you don't miss that deadline. The 120 that I'm speaking of is for public service loan forgiveness only. I have completed public service. I have completed public service. I have not made 120. What box do you check? You check the first box if you have not made 120, or if you don't believe that even those periods of forbearance and so forth will count. You would check the first box, so that way you can get the count. There is no parent forgiveness loan, so I don't know where that conversation is coming from, but there is no such thing as a parent forgiveness loan. The only thing that would allow you to possibly get your Parent Plus loans forgiven is if you are eligible for public service loan forgiveness and you already have a direct loan, or if you've had a Perkins loan or FFEL loan that you've consolidated into a consolidation loan that will give you those additional accounts that you need, and then you consolidate your Parent Plus loan into that loan, then after 120, the balance will be forgiven. So there is no specific forgiveness for Parent Plus loans. The only relief that you can get towards that outside of what I just explained is if you qualify for the one-time debt relief, which would give you up to either $10,000 in relief or $20,000 in relief, depending on if you, as the borrower, was a Pell Grant recipient, that would get you 20. And if you were not a Pell Grant recipient, then that would get you 10. What if your loans are in forbearance? Will MOHELA still transfer your loans? So your loans wouldn't be transferred unless you are qualified for public service loan forgiveness. That's the only way that it will move to MOHELA, or unless you have a loan servicer that's no longer a qualified servicer for the Department of Education and they're moving the loans over, if that's what you're asking. But yeah. Have they started giving out the application for the debt relief? No, not yet. It'll be available in early October. I received notification that MOHELA has transferred my loans from my lender. How long does that take? I'm not sure how long that'll take. Do the Parent Plus loans qualify for loan forgiveness? I just explained the only situations in which it would. Does income-based payments count? Yes, they do. So do we need to fill out an application? For public service loan forgiveness purposes, you would have to do your certification form for the one-time debt relief. Once that application is made available, yes, you can apply. Do the loan qualify if it was done in 2021? Maybe for the one-time debt relief, yeah, you should probably get something for the one-time debt relief for your Parent Plus loan. Got my forgiveness. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. Come on, Mrs. A.H. Congratulations to you. Let us know how much you got forgiven. Put that as a praise report so that we can encourage some people in this chat, because people don't think it's real. I'm trying to tell you, I know somebody personally that was forgiven $165,000 of student loan debt. So the public service loan forgiveness is real. All right, you guys, I'm going to get ready to close out. My head is rocking and my voice is going. So I've done 2 hours, over 2 hours. I've tried to hang on as much as I can. We will be doing another live stream tomorrow. I'm sorry, not tomorrow. We'll be doing another live stream on Sunday to keep the conversations going. Just feel free to continue to stay in action, continue to leverage the resources that I'm sharing, not only on the page. I have several types of playlists across my page, so I want to encourage you to go ahead and check those out. I also have videos on my YouTube channel that walks through the entire public service loan forgiveness process, as well as explaining the ins and outs of the one-time debt relief. So please feel free to go to the link in my bio to subscribe to my YouTube channel and get more detailed information there. I will be releasing videos as I can. As I've mentioned earlier, my work schedule has been very, very, very busy, so I have not had an opportunity to drop as many videos as I have been over the past few weeks. So if you're not seeing many drops, it's because of my work schedule, but I'm trying to get some in as much as I can. But I'm dedicated to doing this live every Wednesday and every Sunday until we get through the limited waiver period end date, which is October 31st. So you all make sure that you share. Oh, wow. What was that? I just got a huge heart. That was so awesome. Whoever that was, thank you. That was beautiful to see. But yeah, we'll be back on Sunday for the next live. As soon as this live stream ends, I'm going to create the next live event so that you guys can be aware of when we'll be back. It'll be the same time, 8 p.m. Wednesdays and Sundays. So I would love to see you guys back. Just a couple more and then I'm going to close out. What forms, applications should we be filling out? So for public service loan forgiveness purposes, you would fill out the public service loan forgiveness form. That's available at studentaid.gov/PSLF. The one-time debt relief application is not available yet, so there's nothing for you to fill out until that becomes available, which will be in early October. And you can just type in Google, or you can go to the website that I just mentioned for PSLF. I'm confused at which loans to consolidate. Again, that's going to be more so of a looking at your situation kind of thing, because I don't know what loans you have. The best bet would be to kind of go back like to what I said and look at what types of loans you have. Look at your loan history, look at your loan details, see what kind of loans you have. Bounce that up against the criteria that I was sharing around the limited waiver for the one-time debt. The limited waiver in terms of which loan programs can now be consolidated into a direct loan, and you will not lose the counts related to those, and that will be Perkins and FFEL. And then use the loan simulator to decide if it even makes sense for you to do the consolidation. I have a video under Parent Plus Loan playlist, I believe. I think it may be under the Parent Plus Loan playlist that talks about what to consider before you consolidate. And this is just for public service loan forgiveness, so making sure that I'm clear on that in case people are just popping in. But go to that playlist and listen to the video, and literally, if you need to keep replaying it over and over and over while you open up your stuff and while you look at your details and while you look at the stipulations and while you pull up the loan simulator, do that. Because once you consolidate, you cannot undo it. Once you submit that loan consolidation application, that's it. So you want to look at, is it realistic for you from a financial standpoint, and seeing what the change will be if you consolidate, and understanding the stipulations in terms of how unpaid interest will now be capitalized once you consolidate, and then see if it'll be worth your while. Okay, part-time worker, 20 to 30 hours per week, volunteer with a 501c3 for over 20 years. Can I apply for public service loan forgiveness? So it's you said something, you said volunteer. So volunteer work will not count for public service loan forgiveness. You have to be getting a W-2. So you have to be getting paid. So unfortunately, if you are a volunteer part-time worker, that will not get you eligible for public service loan forgiveness. You got to be getting a W-2 from that 501c3. Cannot be volunteer work. What happens if you have not paid 120 payments? I think I answered that earlier already. What's the benefit of consolidation? I explained that. Check out the playlist for the Parent Plus loans. I have a video on that. It's less than 3 minutes. It's less than 3 minutes. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and close out. Oh, something else just popped up. I did the loan simulator tool thing, and I don't understand why I have to get my former employer to sign the form for loan consolidation. For loan consolidation, you shouldn't have to get anybody to sign, because it's you, the borrower. So the only form that would need to be signed is the public service loan forgiveness form. if that's what you're talking about. So if you're saying that you use the PSLF tool, then yeah, you would have to get it to sign. But okay, yeah, you corrected yourself. Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, you ain't gonna need that. Yeah, so the loan forgiveness form, exactly, because your employer has to sign in order for them to validate that you were working with a qualified employer while you were making qualified payments. That's the purpose. So your employer has to sign the public service loan forms, because that's a part of the criteria, because they're going to bounce up your employment periods against your payment history, which they already have access to. What they don't have access to is who you work for and how long you work for them, which is why you have to give them the EIN, which is why you have to give them the employment periods, which is why you have to give them all of that information, because once they bump it up, that's going to determine which payments will count. Okay, you guys, I'm pushing through. I done went 15 minutes over. I'm going to go ahead and close out. It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. I hope that this was extremely valuable to you all. Thank you so much. Love is yes. I appreciate you for the notice, and thank you also for telling me to get some rest. I will. I need it. I need to take another pain pill, because I took the pain pill and my head is still hurting. That's how much stress I've been under at my job. But nonetheless, I still got to serve the folks. I got to serve you all. So I'm grateful to be able to help you out as much as possible. All right, HR signed my paper this morning, and I faxed it to them. Now waiting to begin. They stated 120 days. Good job, lady. Year by. Great job. Excellent. I'm happy for you that you got that in. Great work. You guys are so welcome. We will be back on Sunday. Make sure that you let other folks know that we're having this conversation. If you know anybody else that needs to benefit from it, please let them know that we'll be live Wednesdays and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And then to follow my page and check out all of my videos and playlists, because the information is there. If you have any questions, feel free to follow me on Instagram, and you can DM me there, or you could always send me a Q&A inside of here, and I'll be sure to get back to it. But thank you guys for your time and attention, and I'll see y'all on Sunday. Okay, good night. Thanks for bearing with me too. I normally have much more energy than this, y'all, but it's been a day, so good night.